Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, it's a pleasure to be here this morning. We are very excited to be talking about the future of entrepreneurship and that capability and mindset. We're blessed to be here by an esteemed panel of entrepreneurs and key thinkers in this space. It will be fast-paced. Unfortunately, we only have 25 minutes. And we won't be having any slides here today. So we'll quickly get into the introductions and into the conversation, of which I hope you all thoroughly enjoy. So my name is Professor Dominic McVey. Although I am not an academic, I'm an entrepreneur by background, having started at the ripe young age of 12, becoming one of the UK's youngest self-made millionaires by the age of 15, which was almost 30 years ago. So I'm very excited to be speaking about that mindset. Hopefully I can remember what it was like when I started out. But it's a huge pleasure for me to introduce our panel. To the immediate left of me, we have Ritesh. He's the founder and group CFO of Oyo, one of the world's largest hospitality platforms. He founded Oyo at the age of 19, so a very young starter as well, and became one of the first Asian Field Fellows, which is incredible. Despite massive disruption during COVID-19, he led the company to a fantastic recovery and full profitability in 2024, and Oyo now operates in over 35 countries and supports hundreds of thousands of small business owners globally, which is incredible. So looking forward to hearing Ritesh's experiences. To the left of Ritesh is Dr. Badr AlBadr. He is the CEO of the Misk Foundation, a non-profit established by His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Al Salman to empower Saudi youth through education, leadership and entrepreneurship. He has led large-scale transformations across public and private sectors and holds degrees from the incredible University of King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals, the University of Washington at Seattle, I understand, and has completed executive programs at Oxford and Cornell. To the left of Dr. Badr is Faraz Khalid, who is the CEO of Noon. It is the Middle East's leading digital commerce platform. He has a background in engineering with an MBA from Wharton. He co-founded Namshi before leading Noon's expansion across sectors like e-commerce and logistics. And Faraz is very well known for championing local innovation and building scalable, tech-driven ecosystems in the region. And lastly, but not least, Professor Fernando Reimers of the Ford Foundation, where he is the Professor of the Practice of International Education at Harvard University, a global expert in education reform. He directs the Global Education Innovation Initiative and served on UNESCO's Commission on the Futures of Education. Professor Fernando's work focuses on preparing youth to thrive through curriculum innovation and is very much aligned, like myself, with the SDGs, teaching models across continents. So a huge pleasure. A quick round of applause for our panel here, please, ladies and gentlemen. And without any further ado, I want to prompt you all to a quick-fire starting question, and we'll go from my left. What personal experience most shaped your understanding of resilience and entrepreneurship? So Ritesh, go. You've got 90 seconds, please.
Thanks, Dominic. I'll try and be as succinct. Two experiences, I'd say. The first is, like you mentioned earlier, I stopped out of university right after my high school. And for me, that was a transformative experience because I grew up in a middle-income Indian family where university degree was the baseline of expectation. But I think the Thiel Fellowship's first page of the contract said, we never let university interfere with education. And that was my learning that entrepreneurship teaches you so many things. University is just one of the ways of pursuing it. And the second was, our company was growing rapidly. We had thousands of hotels. Even here in the kingdom, we had opened a few locations and we're growing. And right in the middle of it, COVID shows up and knocks the doors. Overnight, instead of growing 300% that we were before that as the growth, we declined our revenue by 70%. Most people said this company could not survive this COVID pandemic. A few years on, because we put our heads down and kept executing and spent time with our customers, we now not only have grown in this region with thousands of keys and jobs, but also in the US have recently acquired Motel 6 and have been growing again. So my sense is there's always light at the end of the tunnel. All you got to do is keep digging.
Indeed, and very focused by the sounds of things. Dr. Badr, please, to you, sir.
Sure. So let me start from an educational point of view. I was an A student in my high school at university, but I went for grad school. First year was so tough in a new environment in the US, in a new discipline, new way of education, I almost dropped out. So that was my first hit with reality and resilience, and I had to pick myself up. But then to go on and to complete my studies with flying colors. But then on, when I came back, I decided to go into business, going from academia after a PhD into business, starting internet service provider. We had high hopes, didn't go as good as we expected. Ended up selling the business at a good price, and then moving on to starting up 3 other startups. None of them survived. As you can see, I'm an employee right now, but I advise others on what not to do in entrepreneurship. Resilience is very important. It's not a skill that you need to learn. It's not a luxury. It's actually a strategic advantage if you have it. And that's my feeling, and that's what I teach my kids.
Very true, Dr. Badr, and thank you for that perspective. Faraz, please, yourself.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us, first of all. So I started my entrepreneurial journey with Namshi 13 years ago, and it's been sort of like the highest highs and the lowest lows every day. And I think my sort of general takeaway is that as a founder or as someone responsible for leading an organization, the secret, I feel like your success, and it's a cliche, but it's directly correlated to what the immediate team you can inspire. The blast radius of your vision is probably like going to define how successful you're going to be, and I really think that you don't really learn that. No one really teaches you. As sort of people who are generally responsible for starting companies, running them, I think staying true to that vision every day is important, and it's hard. Like, you will have the highest highs and the lowest lows, and I think remaining committed and like sort of taking the big picture view is important. And I think the second thing really was around starting noon. Like, when we started, like on day 0, we were competing with probably the scariest company in the history of capitalism, Amazon. And so on the one hand, you were telling your investors that yes, we will get it done, but you're also dealing with a company that only inspires you. And I feel like just sort of that journey of collecting resources and competing and building something that we're very proud of has been sort of great for our team, and I think has been the ultimate kind of like school or university for us.
Well, I mean, speaking of university, Professor Fernando, please.
So there are 2 personal experiences that have shaped how I see the connection between resiliency and entrepreneurship. For the last 20 years, I have taught at Harvard a course called Entrepreneurship and Educational Innovation. And in that course, students come interested in solving a big challenge, educational challenge. And then they develop an idea to solve it and a business plan to launch an organization. As someone who has studied my own students, I've seen the difference between those who ultimately make a difference in the challenge and those who don't. And it really has to do with the commitment to staying the course in the face of many things that are not going to turn out the way you imagine. The second personal experience that has shaped that understanding, some years ago, I conducted a study of 6 programs of entrepreneurship education in the Middle East. And this is a program that brings to schools a business leader that works with young people, helps them create a company. And what I learned in that study is that I came to think of entrepreneurship as a competency that sits on a bundle of competencies, of which resiliency is one of the competencies. And I came to understand how powerful even a 12-week program to teach young people to create a company could be in helping them see themselves differently, not only as capable of action in solving a problem, but as people who gave themselves the permission to fail. Because if you are not forgiving with yourself in the face of failure, it's going to be very difficult to take the risk to try something.
No, it's a very good point, Professor. I often said to people that questioned my ability, what about all the challenges when you were so young? I didn't see them. If there was a brick wall, it didn't exist. I just charged right through it. The biggest challenge for me was that I was not of legal age to sign contracts, so convincing my mother, but slightly different challenge. But really, I mean, as you've all touched upon, that tenacity and the resilience, and not stepping down from a challenge. We see it in exceptional sportsmen. I know there's been conversations around that today. But in entrepreneurs, if we stop, we don't succeed. Yeah. And there's no one there to pick it up for you. And having reflected on early lessons, I'd like to explore what you feel now, having all gone through a number of years in your entrepreneurial journeys of various degrees. What is it that now matters most? And Dr. Badr, we were talking about that leapfrog event. What can we do in education, in leadership, and culture to think about that? And in particular, to you, Dr. Badr, I'd like to understand what Misk's role is in fostering an entrepreneurial mindset. I think that's what we're really talking about today, and how it's building that long-term resilience, especially in this uncertain environment that we're here today.
You could definitely see that we're not getting less uncertain, and the uncertainty is accelerating day by day. We touch the lives of youth at different stages of their lives, from K-12 schools to early high school, joining university help, to helping university students, and then after jobs. And in all of these different touch points, one thing that cuts across is that we try to build the character. And one of the most important things in building the character of these children or young youth who become young professionals is to make sure that they are mentally tough, resilient, stand up after failure. And we do that in different ways. If you look at, and you rightly said, entrepreneurship mindset rather than becoming entrepreneurs. So if you are to look at entrepreneurship as a mindset, as a way of thinking, it cuts across, even when we talk about social entrepreneurs or NGOs. We also help youth start their own NGOs and work on social causes. Yeah. But the underlying mentality there is also entrepreneurship, is that they need to try a number of ideas, they need to test them, they need to fail, probably fail fast, pivot, and start again. And we have seen, the good point here is that we've seen many of these young people go from different programs or go to the same program again with a different idea, which shows that they have absorbed the lesson that failure is not the end of the road. And maybe I could come back again to the issue of failure and how it resonates in different cultures. But failure is fairly stigmatized in some cultures more than others. And that's something here where you need to prepare the person, but also work on the society being more accepting to that.
Well, I'm assuming one of the biggest challenges is understanding what failure looks like and how you deal with that, and building resilience in individuals. So in that sense, how do you equip them on that journey to say, you failed, but don't worry, pick yourself up, we do it again, and you keep failing until you get it right? What does that journey look like at Misk? In experimentation? And
sure, yes. So one of the ways we do it in a group environment where people learn from others' failures. So you fail, you learn from your own failure, but you learn from the failures of others. Yeah. And we make it fairly open to the extent that, please, don't worry, share your failure with others. They might point out some areas of improvement, but also the others will learn from your failure and how you correct it. The one other thing that we are very proud of doing is that some of our courses are taught by entrepreneurs who share their experiences, and those are the ones who scaled very well, some of them who became unicorns. And I could relate a list here of entrepreneurs who are on the pars of Ritesh and Faraz, who also been interacting with us on some of our programs, that share their experiences and how they sprung from failures as becoming role models to these young people.
Incredible, incredible, Dr. Badr. Professor, we spoke earlier a bit about this, the failure and the cultures, and Dr. Badr alluded to that. But you were giving me an example earlier about that quick failure, that turnaround time, and what that looked like. I mean, it'd be great to understand how this works for us going forwards.
So I think that one of the great opportunities that entrepreneurship education gives education systems is that it provides students the opportunity to learn from action. As you know, one of the long-standing sort of debates in the field of education is what's the connection between knowledge and action? And the classical view says knowledge leads to action. But there's an alternative view that says knowledge follows from action. And I think entrepreneurship is a great example of that. And in most schools around the world, students don't really have enough opportunities to learn from their own action, to take initiative, and in particular, to learn from their own action in solving problems of their own choosing. So I think that obviously failure, the school has to be, the experience has to be organized, that it makes it possible for the students to learn from failure. I do have to say, however, that one of the downsides that I see from exclusively action-led experiences for students disconnected from deep study is that it may lead students to think that you can solve problems on the fly, that it may get them to skip the very important step of taking the time to understand what is causing the problem they are solving. And as someone who has studied a lot of the existing programs of entrepreneurship education, at least at the K through 12 level, I'd say that is a weakness for many of them. The failure to integrate and to connect with what students are learning in their science classes, in their math classes, in their language classes. So I think that is the opportunity to provide more students, as part of their experience in school, with the opportunity to actually solve a problem of their own choosing, but to do it in a way that helps them connect what they're learning in the different subjects in solving that problem.
I think you're spot on there, Professor Fernando. It's, I guess to sum it up, is learn by doing. I mean, you don't become a great chef by not tasting a lot of meals. And this is something that we're not putting into practice enough in the education systems. I left school at 16. I was so frustrated with it, but I also had a successful business. That's not to say I didn't stop learning. But that entrepreneurial mindset, having an entrepreneurial society and colleagues and environment, I think is key to the success of any community. Whether someone, I think, as we've heard today, wants to go on and build a business or not, having that entrepreneurial spirit allows you to deal with challenges that life may not always prepare you for. I mean, talking about university and studying, Ritesh, you launched your company, Oyo, straight after high school. You didn't go to university, a bit like myself. Faced massive disruption during the pandemic. You got back to profitability. I'd be interested in that mindset and that entrepreneurial spirit that you have and how you see that replicated in your organization and the path you're treading in life. I think that's very valuable to hear today.
So, Dominic, I grew up in India, where majority of the population, India is the most populous country in the world today, with majority of its population in its 20s. And probably over a third of our population still in their teens and younger than that. So the young in our country, and I think a bit like Saudi, when I see young people, I think the ambitions today are to be the best in the world. I don't think people have ambitions of being the best in their city or in the town or in their location. They want to create great products, and internet has been a great leveler, which has allowed people to learn about opportunities such as these. I was telling earlier His Excellency that when I meet young Saudi kids, even in smaller towns, in Tabuk and smaller places, I think the dreams in their eyes are no more to build a gaming company which is great in their town. They want to build great products which are used by millions around the world. And I think that's the perspective which I had growing up. Thiel Fellowship in some way gave me the opportunity and exposure to think about it at scale. In our company, I think one of the things that we've been very focused on, we call ourselves Oyopreneurs, because our perspective is everyone that we bring together should have an entrepreneurial mindset. There are close to 1,000 companies that have been launched by people who left our company, because every time people join, we build or train them with what we call as our Oyo University, where we train everyone not just in their job, but also in the entrepreneurial way of thinking, which is when in doubt, ask, never assume, always question. A bunch of these things which have allowed us to become highly entrepreneurial, not just in Saudi, but around the world in our organization.
And picking up on that, Faraz, at noon, we're talking about here at Oyo a future-ready entrepreneurship of a workforce, of colleagues. What do you feel is the role, expanding on that, of digital platforms in enabling a future-ready environment?
Thank you. I think, so just dialing the clock back a little bit, in 2012, I came into the region with a sort of backpack from the US, starting a company. at that time, there was almost no talent available locally. Nobody had worked on a consumer internet company. Most people who had worked in tech were working for very large telcos or system integrators, sort of things. There was no talent available locally to build anything digital in the region. And fast forward to now, like in not such a long sort of period, and at the time we had to import talent from all over the world. We had to go beg university students in the US. We had to go beg sort of startup employees in India and the UK, all across Europe, to come work with us. And in many ways, that was the sort of limiting factor to the growth of the startup culture, entrepreneurship in our region in the technology space. Thankfully, there were a few wins. There were a few companies that did reasonably well. There was Namshi, there was Kareem. There were a few sort of like standouts that allowed sort of funding to flow through to these young founders with a dream and a vision to build a gaming company. And now we've got probably one of the most thriving technology ecosystems and talent banks in the world. Like, our office in Riyadh, in Dubai, in Cairo, you have phenomenal, like, mature talent that you can hire in the region. So there's no need to go outside. And I think in many ways, these kids are being trained to start new companies, and this almost compounding effect of successful companies will be seen in our region and will be seen in this country. And you see what's happened. The ultimate compliment a place can give you for building there is that I became Saudi last year, which is a huge so proud of it. And the fact that those things can happen if you do the right things also gives people courage that if you kind of start working independently, build companies that create value, it'll be recognized. And I think that's also a factor, I think.
Very, very well said. And Dr. Badr, I'm conscious we have a number of aspiring entrepreneurs of all ages in this room. Could you give us, not that they don't need inspiring more, but I'd be keen for the audience and myself as well, to the standout examples where investment in mindset has really led to that meaningful, scalable impact.
Of course. Let me take an example of, for example, Mohammed Sabih. Mohammed Sabih started a company called Marin. Marin means flexible in Arabic, and it's a company that matchmakes opportunities for part-time and seasonal jobs with job seekers who are either cannot take a full-time job or want to take some time off to do that, or sometimes even gig workers. Been very successful since joining our accelerator program, which helped him shape his growth path through experimenting with a number of ideas. Ended up growing 66x. So, yeah, since then. He has matched about 350,000 to the equivalent of 2,000 full-time positions. There are many more, but if you sum them up, it's about 2,000 positions in many different companies. Many of them were startups. So this is just an example. And what I would like to, why I choose those examples here is that Mohammed has been very active within the community. So he is not only an entrepreneur who has benefited from the Misk Foundation, but he is also a mentor. He is very active in investing in startups, an angel investor. In addition to that, he's also taken our leadership, our executive leadership, Leaders 2030. So through the various programs of Misk, he's very active and becoming a role model to others. We have Yara Ghoth, who came in at a much earlier stage in our Spark program, where she experimented with an idea, and now it's a marketplace for crafts. So there's many examples.
Incredible.
Yes.
Incredible, Dr. Badr. And I hope we can get to talk more after this. And Misk is renowned worldwide, so I'm sure many people will be following online and in the audience to follow up with that. Unfortunately, I'm being told we have to move on to our conversation beyond the stage. So before we say goodbye to the audience, I would like just 3 words from all of you, and we'll go. Thank you. Professor Fernando, thank you from you.
It's been a pleasure to be here. So my only final words would be think big. It takes as much effort and hard work to solve a small problem as to solve a more complicated problem. And I think that entrepreneurs can be not only architects of their own lives, but people who improve the communities of which they are a part. And I think that's the great gift of entrepreneurship to a country.
Thank you, Dr. One word each.
I'm excited. We're just getting started.
Excited, excellent. Dr. Badr?
Rate of change, accelerating, beyond imagination. Resilience is the key.
Thank you, Dr. Badr. And Ritesh, the last word.
The cost of thinking big is zero. It's free of
Indeed.
cost. Might as well think big.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to our panel.